So you're running on issues that are very relevant to people in New York City, the cost of housing, free busing. Some have projected, that this is the type of platform that would work in other parts of the country. I mean, you're a proud democratic socialist. Do you think that is a platform that would work for other candidates running in other parts of the country?
Absolutely. I think ultimately this is a campaign about inequality. And you don't have to live in the most expensive city in the country to have experienced that inequality, because it's a national issue. And what Americans coast to coast are looking for are people who will fight for them, not just believe in the things that resonate with their lives, but actually fight and deliver on those very things. And part of how we got to this point was through the endorsements of Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Bernie Sanders, who've been leading this fight against oligarchy across the country. And I think that in focusing on working people and their struggles, we also return back to what makes so many of us proud to be Democrats in the first place.
So we got more coverage for you here today of the ridiculous and comical civil war that the Democrat Party is currently engaged in. And as I so often say, it is basically a fool's choice, because whether it is the geriatric corrupt establishment of the party that is going to win out here, or on the flip side, the new, young, woke, radical, crazy, but also corrupt wing of the Democrat Party, it's like either way, their agenda is the eventual destruction of America, whether they do that quickly through the progressive policies or just slowly through the neoliberal failed establishment policies. Either way, guys, here, I think they're screwed, but it's a pretty entertaining situation, to say the least. And needless to say, Democratic leadership and the donor class are having a complete and total panic attack over this unhinged socialist, Mr. Zohran Mamdani, that they allowed to get elected, by the way, through their own incompetence, I might add, and now what everyone knows as the recent New York City mayoral primary election. And it's kind of interesting because on one hand, I almost feel like the Democratic establishment is overreacting here a little bit, in the sense that, about their panic, because despite all of the recent talk that you hear about how Zohran is now the bright, bold new future of the Democratic Party, it's like, hold on a second. This guy literally won one single primary election in New York City, I might add, so this is not necessarily reflective of how the national environment or country as a whole, outside of hardcore Democratic strongholds, necessarily feel, number one. And number two, I think it's also worth noting that Zohran largely almost got lucky in a sense. Not that I'm saying that he didn't run a good campaign, because objectively he did. Okay, that part is undeniable. It's like, okay, you might think he's corrupt, you might think he's sinister. He was a good campaigner, but at the same time, it is worth noting here that he ran against a very weak candidate, right? I think it is pretty plausible to say that if Andrew Cuomo did not have so many liabilities and corruption scandals and tarnishing of his name that happened in the past few years, that this election would not have even been a contest. And it's like, okay, if you want to say the New York City mayoral primary decides literally everything, then 4 years ago, I could point to the fact that Eric Adams, you might remember, actually back then was posing himself as the moderate anti-crime, pro-police Democrat who beat out the other progressives. And did that guy end up being the future of the Democrat Party? I mean, not necessarily. But with all of that in mind, at the same time, I do understand, on a level where some of this Democrat panic is coming from, because when it comes to the 2026 midterms and the prospect that unhinged radical crazies like Zohran may be primarying out other Democratic incumbents, and by the way, not necessarily just in deep blue areas like New York City, right? Imagine a disaster situation where in a key swing race in the House or the Senate, or even a governorship, you get some crazy radical progressive that completely destroys Democrats' chances in 2026. I think that is where the true core of the panic is coming from. But with that said, we got more coverage, like I said, to give you here of this infighting between the new, young, woke lunatics and the old establishment geriatrics. And similar things are also happening in the House of Representatives as Miss Jasmine Crockett, okay, the new leader of the Democrat Party there, saying herself, try to challenge Democratic leadership once again to run for like House leadership over a committee, and she's done this like a million times by now, and once again she lost. Not only did she lose here, she came in last place, so some pretty interesting antics going back and forth between the Democrats. We'll get into all of it in today's video. First though, folks, do us a big favor as usual. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Subscribing here, guys, is not only the best way to support these videos, but it also ensures that you stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And with that said, as Axios is reporting here, quote, many Democratic leaders and donors are panicking about Zohran Mamdani, the 33-year-old Democratic socialist who won the party's nomination to be the next mayor of New York City. And, you know, on a level, I guess it makes sense. Maybe you should be panicking because, after all, you allowed this guy, okay, of all people, to defeat one of your party's biggest political dynasties, I guess, that there was. I mean, maybe there is something to be said about that, yeah, about the incompetence of Democratic establishment leadership, that they keep allowing themselves to be embarrassed in this regard. By the way, 20% approval rating, including from your own base. Yeah, maybe it all makes sense, but nonetheless, why it matters here. Well, establishment Democrats, as you know, are looking to recover from the party's 2024 losses, and they fear that Mamdani could hurt the party's brand nationally, while young progressives believe that his formula could spread beyond New York. And, like, again, here's the thing about the false choice that the Democrat civil war is offering you. It's like, you know, on one level, I guess, is it true that Mamdani is definitely not a good national image for the Democrat Party? I mean, try taking that into a state like Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. You know, it's not necessarily going to go over the same way. At the same time here, I mean, can you really hurt the Democratic Party's brand nationally more than they've already done to themselves, considering, again, 20% approval rating? But whatever. Okay, that's why I say I just find this whole thing comical. It really is something to laugh at. Nonetheless here, so Democratic leaders had largely rallied behind former Governor Andrew Cuomo in New York's mayoral primary. And Mamdani's shocking victory was the latest example of the party's establishment being disconnected from many of its own voters. But here is where it gets really interesting. So, at least publicly, you have a lot of Democrat leadership, I guess, trying to save face with their own base, embracing Mamdani, because it's basically a litmus test in terms of the woke progressives trying to cancel you. And a lot of the congressional Democrat leadership right now is trying to show that they are in touch with their voters, even though they're not. So we did have the two top Democratic leaders, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, both from New York, were declining to endorse Mamdani, but they did indeed applaud his victory, right? But very interestingly, you had this other Democrat, Representative Laura Gillen from Nassau County, called Mamdani the absolute wrong choice for New York. So some moderate Democrats here from more moderate areas are saying absolutely not. Representative Tom Suozzi also said he had serious concerns. So it has not been a universal embracement here, but other House Democrats who hadn't backed Mamdani were mostly tight-lipped on Wednesday. Representatives Pat Ryan, Josh Riley, and Richie Torres, who went so far as to say he wouldn't run for governor if Mamdani won, all dodged the reporters. Dan Goldman was saying not right now, he doesn't want to talk. But here's where it gets really interesting, right? So apparently, major Democrat donors who poured millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars into a super PAC for Cuomo were having private discussions Wednesday about whether to back an independent run by Cuomo in November's general election or rally behind the unpopular incumbent Mayor Eric Adams, who's also running as an independent. So, of course, I think this kind of reflects the problem, by the way. You once again here, guys, have the Democrat donor base basically thinking they can buy an election. They didn't learn their lesson after 2024. That is not the case. And so, you know, same exact story here going on. But it's also pretty interesting because now that you have the establishment basically rallying behind Cuomo, or at least they tried to do that, at the same time, is this not literally a reflection of the self-inflicted wounds that the Democrat Party puts on themselves? Because let's not forget, guys, it was literally just 4 years ago that Andrew Cuomo was the top of the world, right? He was being lauded as like the future, basically, of the Democrat Party. And then what did the establishment do? Just randomly like pushed him out. They canceled him. They basically set him up, okay, clearly by the fact that he's now back in politics. It's like they kind of just did this op to get him out. And then you try to bring him back in. And now that obviously his name has been tarnished, the Democrat leadership, the establishment, after again literally doing this to themselves, are now like, no, right? I mean, like, please, Andrew, save us, right? It's like, again, their own stupid decisions in many regards, not just Cuomo, but, a big picture. I think that's one example, literally got them into this position. And so one really struggles to feel bad. It's also worth noting here that according to further reporting from Politico, as you can see, some House Democrats are already worried that Mamdani's success could embolden primary challengers against Democratic incumbents who see their campaigns as referendums on age and complacency. And as I said, I think nationally, that is the real reason the leadership and the donors are in a panic. That is the biggest risk that Mamdani poses. Not just that Andrew Cuomo won't win, or New York City, as it was before, but it's going to turn even worse now, will turn into some type of anarchic, chaotic, crime-ridden nightmare where a lot of businesses will be leaving, et cetera, et cetera. But really, when you look to the midterms, if this Mamdani guy becomes the national face, basically, of the Democrat Party, and it drives a lot of the same type of stories and situations in 2026, and of course, you have characters like David Hogg and other younger faces of the party already leading that type of revolution, then this is the situation you could see where essentially a bunch of unelectable lunatic crazies, although as I said, I'm not sure they're that much worse than the establishment incumbent ones, but whatever, basically end up handing the 2026 midterms to MAGA and to the Republican Party. Now, with that in mind, it is also worth noting here, almost quite hilariously, that Mamdani not only continues to just, propose very stupid, lunatic policies that will destroy the city of New York, but also directly, apparently here, target a lot of the Democrat donors themselves. Okay, so he really is being dead set here on alienating them, because recently on a interview with the Breakfast Club, he has a new policy apparently, where he's planning on making a new law saying it doesn't matter where your corporation is headquartered. If you do business in New York, you have to pay his new increased corporate tax rate. So basically saying no matter what, right, we're going to make sure we tax everyone who does business by a very high rate in the state of New York. And I don't think I need to explain what the potential consequences of this might be. But again, it's kind of hilarious to think about that in a sense. The very people who are the most affected by this are the ones currently panicking in the Democrat Party saying, no, 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 right? So take a listen for yourself.
I've proposed is that we raise $10 billion to pay for our entire economic agenda and start to Trump-proof our city, because we know he'll use federal funding as leverage over this city. And we will do so in two key ways. The first is to match the state's top corporate tax rate to that of New Jersey. We are at 7.25%. They're at 11.5%. Corporations can pay it over there. They can pay it over here. And the beauty of it is that it doesn't just apply to corporations headquartered in New York City. Because when you say this, people will say, well, they're going to go to Florida. Mm-hmm. Wherever you are headquartered, as long as you do business in the state of New York, you are taxable for that corporate tax. We're talking about corporations that are making millions of dollars, not in revenue, but in profit. And the second is taxing the top 1% of New Yorkers. We're talking about people who make $1 million a year or more, taxing them just by a flat 2% tax increase. And I know if 50 Cent is listening, he's not going to be happy about this. Mm-hmm. He tends to not like this tax policy, but I want to be very clear. This is about $20,000 a year. It's a rounding error. And all of these things together, they make every New Yorker's life better, including those who are actually getting taxed.
Now, needless to say, these are really stupid policies that will simply hasten and increase the economic exodus of capital, of corporations, of business, of wealth, et cetera, from the state of New York. And to that, I say, as someone who does not live in New York, I almost don't really care at all if that happens, because all that's going to do, as he mentions, right, people already leaving to states like Florida, is it will only increase the exodus of economic power in the United States and population, by the way, but also the economy, the tax base, etc., from blue states to red states, which will only further the leverage of the red states when it comes to national politics. Because basically one of the only pieces of leverage that currently blue states have in the country is like, look, California and New York are the largest economy and the third largest economy. Now Texas and Florida have caught up because Texas is 2, Florida is 4. But it's like, okay, you can't totally like abandon the blue states in politics because there's so much of the tax base. Well, if the tax base further keeps on leaving blue states, then Democrat America is basically fading into irrelevance, both in terms of population and in terms of wealth, which is the only advantage right now they still claim to have on the Republicans, even though that gap is narrowing. But with that in mind, okay, it's like you look at it, you see if he wins the November election, here's a situation you might see is in the primaries, there's going to be all this excitement, whatever, all the hype. But by the time we're by next November in 2026, either he just basically doesn't end up enacting these policies and he's a fraud. But if he does, then if a year from now we see the New York City in like total economic mess because of this type of lunacy, but perhaps more importantly for the average voter, just so they can see firsthand his soft on crime anti-police policies that reverse the progress that New York has made in the past year or so on the issue of crime, then that is the greatest message, right, for Republicans going into the 2026 midterms. And unfortunately, for the Democrat donor base, as well as perhaps the people of New York, it does not seem like they are competent enough to stop it, because guess what?
I've proposed
people do not really like them either. Now, with that in mind, okay, so there's a story on Zohran. Again, the Democrat donors are plotting everything they can to possibly sabotage this guy. Apparently, they may now be getting behind Mayor Eric Adams, of course, the very guy they hated for years because he called out Biden's agenda on illegal immigration and has cooperated with the Trump administration on deportations. But they're at the point now where they're that desperate, right? They're that desperate to make sure this young, crazy, woke socialist doesn't win that, much like the Cuomo situation, you're like, you hated this guy, you villainized him, now you're saying, oh, please save us, please save us. So there you have it. Now, on a similar note, discussing here the theme of the young radical crazies in the Democrat Party, we got to discuss one Representative Jasmine Crockett, who recently tried to pull off a similar feat to Zohran Mamdani, except it didn't go all that well, and Jasmine Crockett to this day still sounds as stupid and vulgar and idiotic and low IQ as usual. So we'll get into talking about her in a second. But first, let's kind of see how she's been doing lately. Take a listen.
Since we're talking about integrity, I'm confused as to why my Republican colleagues aren't talking about the lack of integrity when it comes to the president's family's visas. Let me remind y'all that Melania, the first lady, a model, and when I say model, I'm not talking about Tyra Banks, Cindy Crawford, or Naomi Campbell level, applied for and was given an EB-1 visa. And that stands for is an Einstein visa. Now, y'all that don't know, let me tell you how you receive an Einstein visa. You're supposed to have some sort of significant achievement, like being awarded a Nobel Peace Prize or a Pulitzer, being an Olympic medalist, or having other sustained extraordinary abilities and success in sciences, arts, education, business, or athletics. Last time I checked, the First Lady had none of those accolades under her belt. It doesn't take an Einstein to see that the math ain't mathin' here. Nevertheless, what Republicans are doing with this reconciliation process, the travel bans and revoking visas, jeopardizes our national security. It threatens our communities, our higher education, and our economy. Visas like the largely vetted J visas for higher education and M visas for trade, training, attract the next innovators, medical providers, researchers, and educators that we need to build on American success.
Okay, so Jasmine Crockett clearly has not changed. She just still continues to keep up this strategy that, hey, if I talk like an idiot, if I'm someone who, by the way, ironically probably could not qualify for an Einstein visa in any country, okay, forget the United States, I'm pretty sure Jasmine Crockett would not get that kind of visa, a merit-based visa, right, in a nation like Somalia or Afghanistan or like freaking anywhere. Okay, she couldn't get into Syria right now on a qualification visa. So I mean, I'm not sure that the argument there is that strong. But okay, nonetheless, despite all of that, apparently Einstein over here has recently tried to do a similar move to Zohran Mamdani, where she once again, by the way, it's worth noting she's done this like 5 times now, but apparently once again tried to run for the top post on a House Oversight panel, right? Talking basically there about Democratic leadership. And literally, I kid you not, this week, her bid has now failed because she came in last place. So as you can see, the Dallas Democrat had said her party should respond more aggressively to the Trump administration and pitched herself as the best messenger for the job, ladies and gentlemen. That is right. According to the new young woke faction of the Democrat Party, who, by the way, does, it's worth noting here, seem to be a little bit more popular with the actual Democrat voter base than the establishment, that, according to them, Jasmine Crockett, someone who cannot even speak proper English, much like Congressman Sri Thanadar, is apparently, according to them, the best messenger that their party has going forward into 2026. So that's why I really say either direction the party goes here, Hakeem Jeffries, not a great messenger, but Jasmine Crockett, not really either. One fails to inspire, the other inspires people to go vote against the Democrats. So I don't know either way. But anyways, here's the story. Apparently, Representative Jasmine Crockett withdrew from the race to become the top Democrat on the powerful House Oversight Committee. This is marking the Dallas Democrats' second defeat in her attempt recently to climb to the ranks of congressional leadership. So boo-hoo there. Crockett confirmed her decision to bow out of the race in a text to the Texas Tribune early on Tuesday. House Democrats recently picked Representative Robert Garcia as their ranking member on the 47-person panel later Tuesday morning. The California Democrat competed his remaining rival in the race, Stephen Lynch, after winning the support of the steering committee. It's worth noting here, by the way, again, Jasmine Crockett didn't come in second place. She came in last place. So great job there, right? Anyways, the high-profile Oversight Committee does handle issues related to government efficiency and accountability, and would likely, by the way here, spearhead investigations into Trump if the Democrats gain control of the House in 2026. So it's like, this would be the committee that inevitably tries to launch the impeachment inquiry and all of that into Trump. And Democrats here are basically just saying to Jasmine Crockett, no, we do not want you guys to be leading it. So that's kind of funny to see. In a letter to colleagues announcing her bid, Crockett advocated for a more aggressive response to the Trump administration. Every hearing, every investigation, every public moment must serve the dual purpose of accountability and must demonstrate why a House Democratic majority is essential for America's future. Many Democrats considered Crockett for the post, but hilariously here, right, found her messaging style to be overzealous. Right? Basically saying there, she's a bad look for the party. She's like ghetto. She's ratchet. She's just not very convincing to, the normal voters of this country outside of her, deep blue and, majority black district. It's just the truth, right? But anyways, Crockett previously faced criticism after referring to Greg Abbott as Governor Hot Wheels, etc., etc. So this is the situation that you currently see the Democrat Party in. Now, here's the thing about the establishment, right? It's like, if you guys truly believe in democracy so much, and clearly, by the way, it's an objective fact within your party, within your voter base, who's basically deciding all of this right now, Crockett is more popular than Hakeem Jeffries among Democratic voters. Maybe even nationally, because I don't know if Hakeem Jeffries is popular with anyone in the country, right? So why not give her the shot? Why not give Mamdani the shot, etc.? The reason I say that is because it's like, okay, a lot of these people, they keep claiming that, oh, Crockett's a good messenger. That's the kind of person Democrats need, etc., etc. I'm saying to them, I encourage you, okay, make these people the face of your party in 2026. Yes, make it Zohran, make it Jasmine Crockett. See how that goes over in the swing states again. Because all these people recently are saying, oh, we know what's best for the Democrat Party. They need to move forward to people like this. Okay, then do it. Right? Leadership should let them do it. And I want to see, frankly, where that all goes. As you can see here, Donald Trump, by the way, uttering similar sentiments. He put out recently here that, quote, I have an idea for the Democrats to bring them back into play. After years of being left out in the cold, including suffering one of the greatest losses in history in 2024, the Democrats should indeed nominate low IQ candidate Jasmine Crockett for the president. AOC plus 3 should be respectively vice president, and the 3 high-level members of the cabinet should also be there, added together with our future communist mayor of New York City, and the country future is really screwed. And it's like, yeah, I mean, honestly, like, as I said, if the Democrats really believe these people are the future of the Democrat Party, as a lot of the leadership always is giving lip service to, but just don't want to fully admit, okay, put them center stage. Why is the Democrat establishment so scared? We know the reason. We know because the truth is she's not appealing. She's not popular. You put her in front of a center-of-the-road voter, they think she's a low-IQ lunatic. Okay, she's literally only red meat for a very small fraction of the Democrat base, and that's basically it. But, that in mind, it's also worth noting here, will the establishment really be able to muzzle these types of new crazy figures before 2026? Because they can't even get Zohran to lose the primary. So can they really get Crockett to shut up? No, that's the problem they're going to be facing, because you have an inept, incompetent Democratic establishment and a grassroots that is utterly insane and off-putting to people, but so is also the establishment. So either way, as I so often say, it doesn't matter who wins here. The Democrat Party is screwed in both scenarios. But with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of these recent developments in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.